think, is this mic on? Yeah. Good. That's better. I think we're going to give another couple of minutes to everyone from Millennium to join us. I think our friend Johnny has just finished, so just a couple more minutes and we can get going. Okay, so can I ask one quick question? How many of you went to one of the after parties last night? Not too many. That's why everyone looks so fresh. Good stuff. So we're going to get going with our first session in this parallel room for the day. I have the pleasure of welcoming on stage two very excellent speakers and professionals from our headline sponsors, A-Data Pro. They are Devora Kotseva and Todor Kiriakov, who are both training specialists at A-Data Pro, and they will be speaking about fake stakes and real stakes, using media intelligence to measure the business impact of information threats. Sounds very exciting. So please give them a big applause and welcome them on stage.
I see more people coming, so let's just give them a moment.
Thank you. Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. It's amazing to have you here. I think it's a bit too early for steaks, which is why we brought apples. Now, as you may know, an apple can be many things. It can be a source of knowledge and good health, but also discord, poison, and even death. We are Devora and Todor from A-Data Pro, and today we are here to pick the bad fruit from the basket. Then we're gonna slice right into it to find the source of contamination. And the bad apples we are looking for are called information threats. Think rumor, slander, and fear-mongering. They sow discord, poison minds, and kill reputations.
We are developing a methodology for the early detection, real-time monitoring, comprehensive measurement, and in-depth analysis of information threats. We provide the analytical framework of this methodology, and it is backed and powered by the cutting-edge AI solutions of our sister company, Identrix, present here. Our purpose is to go beyond the surface, to break down the components that make those information threats as dangerous. We want to find out how they impact audiences, and eventually, by gaining knowledge and understanding, to help their victims, who might be our clients, deal with such threats.
Now, when you hear information threats, maybe you think about fake news or disinformation. And disinformation is a potent poison, but these threats can take on many other forms. For instance, we have information which is true but damaging, or they can just forego all factual claims in favor of illusions, symbols, and emotional triggers. Our methodology is not about determining what is true or debunking claims. We leave this vital job to journalists and fact-checkers who have not only the qualification, but the responsibility to do so. We instead aim to identify, measure, and analyze hostile communication campaigns we call information operations, or I.O. They are characterized as deliberate, continued, at least partly coordinated. They attempt to serve particular interests by exploiting existing social divisions and vulnerabilities in the media environment. One more thing we should talk about is that information operations may sound exclusively political in nature, but when we think about it in this way, we think about foreign agents running covert operations meant to sway elections or policy decisions, or maybe hostile radicals looking to harass vulnerable groups or ruin trust in democratic institutions. Or maybe we talk about fringe movements pushing ludicrous conspiracies. However, in all of these cases nowadays, we see the same patterns of tactics, techniques, and distribution channels leveraged to deceive users and also target industries and sectors. These include businesses, and they can suffer reputation damage, stock price drops, and supply chain disruptions. And maybe you remember, but we have all actually witnessed some very high-profile attacks against businesses in the last couple of years. I mean, we all saw the massive onslaught of disinformation against the producers of the COVID-19 vaccine, like Pfizer and AstraZeneca. Maybe some of you have heard the mind-boggling hoax that furniture retailer Wayfair is involved in child trafficking. And last but not least, I think we all remember how an imposter X account erased billions of dollars from Eli Lilly's market cap by just posting one single tweet.
Devora and I had examples like these in mind when we set about to develop the methodology for detection, measurement, and analysis of information threats. We drew upon our experience in media intelligence, which includes the fundamental standards and best practices that are embedded in the AMEC Integrated Evaluation Framework, which was one of our main sources of inspiration, but not the only one. We also studied other existing frameworks, such as the DISARM framework, which has been adopted by the European External Action Service to monitor foreign information threats, as long as the media manipulation casebook developed at the Harvard Kennedy School. We started the contemporary research on the topic, and to combine inductive and deductive approaches, we simultaneously come through vast amounts of media content to come up with a comprehensive model. And it is a model that has three pillars, starting with detection. We already mentioned the contribution of Identrix. We primarily rely on their AI models here. Further, we go to measurement, where we use a set of relevant metrics, and we combine automation with human expertise to be able to measure the scope, the size, the spread of an information operation. And finally, we do profiling and analysis of information operations, looking at every component of them. For example, we look at the narratives that they try to push. We look at the actors behind them, those who spread and amplify IO content. We look at the victims, regardless of whether they're individuals or businesses or entire governments. We look at the connections between the actors and also between different information operations. We look at the techniques that are being used, and we profile the key moments in the development of an IO. Then we try to infer the objectives behind the operation and to assess the outcomes of the IO, so the impact on the target audiences, and possibly the effectiveness of any potential countermeasures that may have been undertaken. Since IO are not static, they develop. This is also a work in constant progress, so to speak. And we've been trying to perfect it. Most recently, we teamed up with researchers from Bulgaria's leading academic institution, Sofia University, to be able to develop this methodology further. But most importantly, the guiding principle is that the methodology should not be dependent on a number of variables. Each should be applicable regardless of these variables. For example, the language or languages of the information operation, the topic of the narratives, the sector or industry of the victims, the identities of the actors. The methodology is agnostic towards all those things. And to illustrate that, we have chosen an example of an information operation that targets a business.
The company is based in Israel and produces vegan meat alternatives via 3D printing technology. And these products in texture, flavor, and appearance very closely resemble that of real meat, real steaks, and burgers. The products are compliant with EU food regulations, and they are sold in several EU markets. Now, the company has been targeted by several information operations, but there is one specific case that stands out among the rest. And it concerns a text containing several paragraphs that mix in accurate information about the company alongside with false claims that the company actually sells cultivated meat or meat grown in a laboratory. They are usually accompanied by screenshots which are taken from news outlets reporting on this company, but they are repurposed so as to invoke disgust in the reader or viewer. And these paragraphs, this text, it keeps reappearing on different distribution channels over different time periods, which is why we call this a classic case of copy pasta. And fact checkers from different countries have already debunked the false claim of the cultivated meat some 30 times, but this hasn't stopped the information operation from circulating on different channels. So, using our methodology, we profiled and analyzed some key components like key moments in the development, influential spreaders, and techniques. I already told you some of those techniques, like using a copy pasta or reframing images in a different context. But there is also another interesting technique that we looked into, and it is what we suspect is automatic dissemination of content. So, for instance, we first looked into this case, which takes place in Poland. We have this post, which is a Polish translation of the copy pasta, and it was first published in January. And suddenly, 2 months later, it started circulating on a variety of public groups in Facebook in a lot of countries, from the US to Brazil, Spain, France, Sweden, Romania, and the Czech Republic. And it was the same post in Polish, we should note. Another interesting case was taken from Bulgaria. In here, we have a TikTok video related to the information operation, which was shared on Facebook, where a single Facebook user shared the post a staggering 13 times within less than a minute in all these groups, which are mainly nationalistic and pro-Russian. And one important thing is that it is behaviors like this, where we have coordination and inauthenticity, that are a prime indicator that what we are looking at is an information operation, and it is not just viral content.
Now, we also measured the information operation, and we're going to share with you some of the numbers. At first, they might not sound that impressive, but I suggest we take a second look together. So, we looked at a period of 1 year, beginning on the 1st of May, 2023. That was a few days before the first instances of the copy pasta text appeared. And we closed the period on the 30th of April 2024, but as we are speaking, the information operation is ongoing. You can find copy-paste posts across social media channels from probably even today, at least from the last few days, most certainly. So in that period of 1 year, we saw the copy-paste circulating on 3 main channels. On Facebook, where we got about 1,500 posts from public groups and pages. We don't know about private, like closed groups and everything. We only know about public content. Then comes Reddit. 2 subreddits published the copy-paste, and it was then discussed for a total of 1,100 posts. And finally, X, what is now known as X, where we had close to 1,000 posts. Additionally, we found far smaller volumes of content on Telegram, on TikTok, on Instagram. The copy-paste made its way to blog posts and to fringe websites posing as legitimate news outlets. But things changed a bit. Like these numbers may not look huge, but we decided to compare them with the total number of mentions of the company in question, so to speak, to calculate the share of voice of the information operation. So we found out that IO-related content comprised 59% of all mentions of the company on Facebook. And on Reddit, that number was a staggering 93%. On X, the share of voice seemed to be a bit smaller, at 29%. However, as Devora mentioned, the company has been targeted in other information operations where the content is different. It's not the copy-paste post, but the narrative is very close. So we found out that if we also take them into account, then the total share of hostile content on Twitter, or X, I'm sorry, rises to 91%. That's a lot. Imagine your brand and like anywhere between 60 and 90% of hostile, misleading content, like making up the like this huge part of your volume. This is not nice. And then we can't say for certain how many people did see that content. We can calculate the potential exposure. So, any guesses? Did it reach 1 million people? 10 million? Who's with 10 million? All right. On Twitter X and Reddit, we got a combined 4+ million people who may have seen that content because they either follow an X account that spread it, or they are members of the subs where the content was discussed. On Facebook, we had over 70 million page followers and group members who may have seen this. Now, just to imagine those numbers more clearly, that's more than the combined population of Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Or any Americans? That's more than the people living in California, Texas, and New York combined. May include some of you, I guess.
Okay, and it gets even more interesting than that. Because as we spoke, the copy-paste, it was translated into different languages with minimal differences, but we found out some small tweaks which seem to be put there on purpose so as to invoke certain social, cultural, or political triggers. Now, for instance, in France, we saw that the company was presented as a front for Nestlé and Pfizer, which were shown as two big, evil capitalist corporations. In Spanish posts, they took time to highlight that the company is from Israel. And as we probably know, most of the countries in Latin America have recognized Palestine as a state, and Spain is set to join them on the 28th. In two big agricultural countries, namely Romania and Poland, the copy-paste highlighted the fact that this cultivated meat is part of a sinister global plan to replace foods and traditional farming as we know it. And then in Greece, amidst all the heated debate about legalizing same-sex marriages, the copypasta claimed that the meat was grown in water with estrogen, efficiently, like turning all men gay.
Right, so the company's response.
Yeah,
What
the
was it?
company's response, we saw that the company is not in a crisis mode yet. They respond to inquiries, making sure to debunk those false claims, but they haven't contradicted the information operation directly. And so far, they seem to present themselves in a positive light, which seems to be working for them. But we should take into consideration the fact that the majority of content related to this information operation was spread in Eastern Europe and the US, where the company has no presence yet. So in case they want to expand on these markets, those people would already have like a preconceived negative image of the company, which might fire back.
Which comes to show that information operations are a very unique type of threat. Some of their characteristics are very specific, and companies may find themselves short of resources to understand and deal with them. For example, the narratives they use, which are specifically crafted to stir emotions, to incite fears, to affect people on a psychological level. Or networks of accounts, some of them probably fully automated like bots, spreading the IO content further and faster than it would have spread organically. In many information operations also fake content, like what we saw in the other room, produced with the latest AI technology or simpler means. So these are all unique specifics of information operations, and whoever is targeted, be it a company or a government or a person, might have difficulty dealing with them, might have difficulty even in distinguishing genuine from fabricated conversation online. And this is why an increased awareness of such threats is needed among their targets, but also among us, the people who deliver media analysis, who measure and evaluate communication. We must also have that awareness and preparedness to deal with the threat. So, to summarize and draw a few takeaways from what we've said. Information threats exist. They present themselves as the apple of knowledge, but in reality, they're more like the apple of discord, with an alluring image, but one that spreads division and chaos. And those bad apples are information operations. They rely a lot on disinformation, but on much more. And they can target anyone. No one is safe. They can target businesses too. They can target our clients, even us. So a specific type of expertise is needed to understand and counter information operations. And we believe that our industry can bring this expertise to the table. We have what it takes. What we need is to use our experience, to use our toolboxes, to use our analytical potential to come up with methodologies to detect, to analyze, to understand the threat, and ultimately to help our clients, the victims, counter it. In this way, we can actually serve the proverbial dual purpose of both being useful to the clients and doing good. Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys, and for doing such an in-depth research. Our industry needs a lot more of this type of quality work. Just one quick question from me. What is the origin of copypasta?
I first saw it in English, so that is the earliest example that we have.
Does this come from copy-paste or?
Yeah, the word copy-paste.
Yes,
As a term, this means a chunk of text that is being reposted again and again and again and again. You can find it anywhere. You can find it on YouTube comment threads. You can find it in website comments. Just paste it without or with minor changes.
Right, right. Fascinating. One more question from me, and we'll probably have time for one more question from the audience. Is there any other methodologies or research projects you guys have been working on that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, we are currently involved in a project that has to do with building a taxonomy that will hopefully help identify propaganda speech in different chunks of texts, and hopefully we can integrate it within the methodology we are currently building.
Again, we do that with Identrix.
Yes, our colleagues from Identrix.
We look forward to hearing more about it at next year's summit.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Any questions from the audience? Brilliant. Steph in the back? Thank you. I was expecting Maya, but...
Thank you. Does this work? Can you hear me? Okay. On the topic of reach, I'm always really interested in reach and perhaps overstating reach. And given that not always the number of followers of an account actually are reached by that post, I was wondering if you found any tools and you could advise us on methods to really understand the level of post reach. I know for the past few years Twitter has been quite transparent in that data, but I just wondered if anybody in this room knows good ways of getting that actual post level reach rather than potential follower of a page level reach.
We are aware that the metric that we demonstrated here is imperfect because we all know that people tend to be members of more than one group on Facebook, to follow more than one account on X. Therefore, there are certainly some overlaps in this number. It is just indicative. I wouldn't delve into the answer channel-wise, but I would also think that with examples like this, where the copy-paste or whatever IO-related content there might be appeared in very different countries with very different behavior patterns among social media users, there could not be like a one-size-fits-all approach to calculating probably any metric.
Absolutely, and we've also witnessed different techniques, as in, I think, for instance, in public Facebook groups, one user shared the same post from a public group in the very same public group. And I remember asking a data scientist about it, and I thought that there was like a very big, interesting explanation, and he said like, yeah, they just want to flood the information space and just make sure everybody gets it on their feed.
Thank you so much. Please give Devora and Todor a final round of applause. Thank you so much, guys.